All right. It is December 18th, 2025. This is going to be a brief 2025 review stream going over the 72 videos of 2025. And just to review, recap, make a kind of concentrated, distilled final end product, taking a quick look back, seeing if any AI perplexity tools can help us get another look at the videos, looking at anyone's comments for who's watching live, seeing if we have any memories, any reflections, any trends that were arising during the year or in relationship with previous years, and looking towards what could be in 2026. So let's collapse all these and we'll go from the top. Okay. We'll just reorder things as we go. There was, first just at the level of the series. And the coda page that I'm at is in the video description if you look. Our videos, our streams are sorted into different series, and they are reflected upon here. So 1 math art stream, 35 guest streams, that's the most general, kind of one-off. 4 quarterly roundtables, the last one coming tomorrow. 1 org stream, 2 model streams, 3 math streams, this review stream, 10 textbook groups, 3 very long videos for the Applied Active Inference Symposium, and 12 active InferAnt streams with some sort of coding and various works. So let's just jump in. In the first, we have Feedback Welcome with Andrew Penland. And let's just see if Perplexity can summarize this video. This was a fun video because it involved, in contrast with pretty much any other video, a very specifically visual component using OBS for feedback, kind of like that. So that's fun to play with the format and talk about feedback, talk about strange loops, all these different kinds of things that come up in the course of math, but also get reflected on in the art. We had 3 quarterly roundtables so far, and the 4th one will be happening tomorrow. These are organizational update videos, moving from the practice of organizations into the theory of organization. OrgStream 9 with Manuel Hoffman was on the value of open source software. And here is what comes from that perplexity on Feedback Welcome. Interesting. This was just a generic, but in other cases, Perplexity is able to have some access to live streams, but appears to have some issues. But on this one, it came out just fine. It's all good. We won't really work with the Perplexity. We'll just see what reflections people manually have. This org stream was awesome. I think it's very important to explore this question of the value and the support of open source software. And I think it provides a great starting point for talking about how do we evaluate the value of what is made openly. And you can see their kind of evaluation strategies, which are the norms in economics, and think about other ways to value software. So very cool to see this kind of pragmatism brought and to bring value to what is often easy to dismiss as simply free. In this year, there were 2 model streams earlier in the year, in March and April. Model streams are intended for kind of technical walkthroughs on generative models. So we had Model Stream 17 with the RxInfer team and with Fraser. And this was a provocative presentation about what is wrong with active inference. Of course, a bit of a Hegelian approach here to then propose their own work. But it was a great follow-on discussion and led nicely into a lot of the ongoing work that's happening with RxInfer. In Model Stream 18, this was a presentation on distributionally robust free energy principle for decision making. Okay, I'm going to update the title in the production document. Just for context, this coda page that I'm referencing is where all of the live stream information is coordinated. The video is open to everybody with the link. You won't have edit access, but that's where the protocol, the procedure for how we schedule and do live streams and who people have brought up to invite, all these kinds of things. And in this video, they presented on their robotics research and about how to deal with robustness of decision-making when there's uncertainty about the robots' world. Okay. There's, of course, this review stream, strange loopy as it may be. There were 3 math streams, 12, 13, and 14. These were some of the most clear memories for me. I always enjoyed these math streams. In 12.1, Ola running. Presented on the elbowing Stein. So evidence lower bound is equivalent essentially to variational free energy. So just sorry about that. We should be back. Very nice statistical methods covering some of these distributional update rules and ways to go back and forth and to use these particles, inject these particles in as tracers on a vector field. MathStream 13, DiscoPy, monoidal categories for active inference, of interest for those who are exploring the category theory active inference interface. And DiscoPy is a programming package that helps represent string diagrams. So here's a string diagram for cooking. And Alexei goes into string diagrams for active inference and gives some background on category theory. Then in MathStream 14, Jesse von Oostrom presented on his review paper a concise mathematical description of active inference in discrete time. So great, concise pedagogical materials. There were more than 10, but I guess only 10 represented here, textbook groups. This represented some of the closing times, probably, for this cycle at least, that we are working through the 2022 Active Inference Free Energy Principle in Mind, Brain, and Behavior textbook, as we are eagerly looking towards the fundamentals of active inference, principles, algorithms, and applications of the free energy principle for engineers by Sanjeev Namjoshi, coming out in March of next year. So we're getting excited for that textbook group, and looking back on these textbook groups, these are always fun. There's so much to this material, and to appreciate Andrew Bashea for facilitating a bunch of the textbook group meetings, and to all the participants who show up. Active InferAnt streams. These were streams that I expose ways to show what I'm working on, often in the active inference or in the meta research or in the tool development space. And the year began with some plain text exploration. April, Agents Bring May Simulations. That was exploring some different agentic systems, the more LLM coordination-based OpenManus, as well as the probabilistic generative models with RxInfer. Cerebrum began a thread related to linguistics and Bayesian approaches to language. NoOrg, as a organizational agent coordination framework. Generalized notation, the following 3 in 14. And this was moving through this domain-specific language for generative models and going from plain text to triple play. So from the configured file into the code that's executable, the mathematical representation, diagrammatic representation, natural language. There was the golden spike moment for multi-agent trajectory planning, where I reverse engineered the example of multi-agent trajectory into this configurable format and then forward engineered the configuration, and we met in the middle, had a golden spike moment, and that is hopefully of interest to people who want to see that kind of industrial grade scientific integrity for generative models. And the sound of uncertainty, which was adding some features into the GNN package, like audio format rendering directly of generative models, not just their outputs, like listening to the configuration. Start here, operational meta-scientific arts and crafts and generative education yesterday capped off a sort of content development, educational and research tool development arc. And each of these videos have their associated code. And so all open source. Now we get to the most variable, which will be the Symposium and the GuestStream. So the Applied Active Inference Symposium, the 5th one, was in November 2025. And here was the public program, just for reference. We had three days live streams, keynote by Carl Friston, bunch of live streams, some more workshop sections, and a bunch of pre-recorded videos. And we have the timestamp information available for all of them. Those have been added to the videos. So about 40 or 50 presenters, really awesome to see, and looking forward to the next year's symposium. And then just last section here for this video is looking at the GuestStreams. And let's see here what trends might emerge. We had Rithvik Praki, active inference for self-organizing multi-LLM systems, a Bayesian thermodynamic approach to adaptation. This was very on trend, I think, for 2025, looking for similarities, differences, convergences, synergies with active inference, probabilistic modeling, cognitive modeling, and LLM, which was one of the themes of the year. In January, Ron Edelman presented on cognitive experience design, designing AI systems for trust. Also complementing, I think, another part of that trend, which is not just at the technical back end side, but also in terms of the human-computer interface, user interface side. How do we design, how do we think about these concepts like trust? Matt Sims presented on slime mold and philosophy, and Matt had presented, here's the full video table. Matt had joined us in October 2021 to discuss his paper, How to Count Biological Minds, Symbiosis and the Free Energy Principle. So, classic Dave Douglas, Stephen Sellett joining as well. And joined us this year to discuss his book on slime mold, which was a book I got the physical version of and read. Nice, quick, concise read. In February, we had the group of Murray Smith presenting on their work on human-computer interaction. So here, and with Arun, who coordinated this presentation. There's so many interesting analyses, I think, when we look across all the videos. Which visual representations of active inference, of the agent environment do people use? What's the rhetoric? What's the technical justification for the different kinds of works? What do people bring up as their justification? What do they highlight as their challenges and their successes? This group in particular put in a lot of work to making the different stages of their generative models operation very clear. So great presentation. GuestStream 90.2 with Benjamin Nelson, a intern. This was I was in a coffee shop and there were some disruptions, which I guess was also sort of a theme of the year. And it was very interesting, although all over the place, and I hope was a useful milestone and marker on Benjamin's journey. Going into May, Avel, Gwen and Carlu presented on From Contextuality to Social Constraints, an active inference ontology for participatory realism and social change. So, those familiar with Avel's work will know he always brings a very, very rich, very holistic view to the technical elements of the work and extends and connects it into the social sciences. And some may remember a different version of this image in the 2023 course on the social sciences. GuestStream 100.1, Palindrome, with Yu Kanazawa on the free energy principle and implications for language learning and education. This was a very memorable stream for me. Partially, I think it was nighttime. Could have been morning in Japan. Yu's style is extremely energetic and dense visual information that really brought together a great number of points and connected it to language learning and education, which is something we've all done and or are doing. So this was a very fun and relevant presentation. Into April. A little bit of a busier April. GuestStream 101 with Mohsen Jafari and Yulin Lee was on navigating autonomous vehicles on unmarked road with the fusion-based motion prediction and active inference. So this is getting into the applications in robotics and autonomous vehicles and smart homes. And so and also to the more technical theme of similarities and differences with generative AI and active inference. Here we saw the diffusion modeling and the way that the forward and reverse diffusion modeling could be used, which came up in some other streams. 4, 9, 25, 2 squared, 3 squared, 5 squared, with Majid Beni, who we will look at some of his previous times joining. Here was a great stream with Dean, and Majid always has a lot of very interesting philosophical points. He joined. Interesting. Majid was the first guest stream in February 2021. A critical analysis of Markovian monism. Very first guest stream. Oh, total throwbacks. Total throwbacks. And so, while what's new and recent is great, it's also really nice to look back at some of these older presentations, see where things were, and the paper. And then in interesting 2022, did Majid, yes, Majid worked on Tale of Two Architectures, and then in the, of course, epic Dean-infused Livestream 47 series on the double play with inactive social cognition and abduction. The abduction thread continued to be developed by Majid and colleagues. Still in April this year, we had 82.5 with Robert Warden, a Institute research fellow on computers, meaning, and consciousness, and this was part of a series by Warden. He has now presented on 7 guest streams that took us from the requirements equation, three-dimensional spatial cognition, projective wave theory of consciousness, and assessment of the brainwave hypothesis. That was last year. And then this year, in April and October, was computers, meaning, and consciousness, unified theory of language, and language and human nature. This was a raucous roundtable discussion, and had a bunch of guests. In April, Tobias Plowman presented on The Mind in Motion, a systems model of real-time cognitive transitions. So this was a cognitive modeling approach that Tobias had developed. April, Tadahiro Taniguchi joined for Collective Predictive Coding and Active Inference, a new perspective on emergent communication. And let's look at... He also joined later in Guest Stream 118 for co-creative learning via Metropolis Hastings interactions. And these were both excellent presentations, also nighttime for me. Also fantastic, visually comprehensive, technically distilled, very nice presentations, bringing together the fundamental, the biological, the generative, active inference. And in the second of Tadahiro's presentations on the channel, he talked more about extending from the collective predictive coding into the Metropolis Hastings naming game, and about this sort of third option that is neither supervised nor unsupervised, but co-creative And so that was very, very thought-provoking, and is a great example of where something can have both a narrow technical contribution to make, as well as a broader philosophical point, and Tadahiro really spanned that gamut. Into May, Paolo Di Maio joined to discuss systematic deviation and presented on a variety of topics from the chemical to the societal. GuestStream 106 was with Beng Liu and collaborators, and they had written this very large review and synthesis paper on foundation agents, and presented on, each of the authors presented on different sections, giving a really nice, almost textbook-like presentation summarizing the state of the field, and great place to learn about agentic and multi-agentic systems. GuestStream 107, David Bennermo, who's one of the IY organizers, presented on computational psychiatry and affective states, some of the modeling work that their group are involved in. GuestStream 108 with Christo K. Thomas, Next Generation Artificial Intelligence for Emergent Semantic Communication. This, though, of course I don't play favorites, was one of the most memorable presentations for me. Also with excellent, dense visual elements. But getting into this question of applied semantic transfer and semantic information content, which had been a key theme in our learning, going all the way back to 2021 with Chris Fields et al. And the information flow in a context-dependent hierarchical Bayesian inference. And Christo presented on this in the mobile networks, similar to Tadahiro's work in a way, regarding multi-agent semantic transfer, and just very fascinating discussion about how, as our communication networks move from syntax-aware bandwidth, like how many bits of information can be transferred, how many hard drives will it fill up, into the semantics of information transfer, we get into this real cognitive modeling setting where we're talking about belief updating, message passing, and you could have 1 gigabyte file that in pragmatic terms doesn't provide any information, and you could have 1 bit of Shannon information that provides important reduction of uncertainty for a given agent in a moment and a context. So how do we really work with that? And that's where active inference came into play. And so it was a great discussion. Alexander Hemming in 109 presented on free energy, attentional narrowing, and cognitive rigidity. This was, I think, a sort of cousin approach to that of Tobias, in that this was a cognitive modeling, mathematical, and computational model that was connected to a lot of day-to-day aspects, cognitive systems, and is just cool to see all these snapshots of work that's ongoing. In June, Takuya Isamura joined for triple equivalence for the emergence of biological intelligence, and this was an excellent presentation. Takuya had joined previously in 2022 in the discussions of Livestream 51 on canonical neural networks perform active inference. So here was the double play in 2022, was neural network, loss function, and the morphism with a variational base. And then in 2025, he took that 2 to a 3, went into the triple play, and in the triple play brought in not just the neural network and the variational base, but the Turing machine formulation. So that went another fantastic, visually exciting, technically sophisticated work, bringing together some of the major continents, really, in the intelligence landscape today. The neural network, the Bayesian, and the Turing. So, great and charismatic fellow. GuestStream 111.1 with Georgiev was on modeling and predicting self-organization in dynamic systems out of thermodynamic equilibrium. This was a nice long presentation from Professor Georgiev, and involved a variety of theoretical and empirical features of far from equilibrium systems. So we had a great broad scoping discussion. GuestStream 112 with Hadiv Afai on brain-like variational inference. Kind of a classic postdoc stream. Great background. We see the ELBO, the evidence lower bound, negative free energy coming into play, highlighting the unifying nature of variational free energy minimization, coming at this from more of a statistical families of distributions style, rather than, for example, the more 2010 Friston-styled unifying tree, where here's more of different kinds of cognitive phenomena, optimal control and model evolution and selection, whereas Hadi made a very clear walkthrough of variational inference and the ELBO, and presented on this excellent statistical work. 113 with Sergio Yaquez on Bayesian mechanics of economic choice, computational foundations of economic behavior. This was a great stream, brought together a lot of the history and classics and fundamentals of micro and macroeconomics, and got all the way on through the kinds of modeling that Sergio and colleagues are engaged in right now, and I know has developed significantly since this presentation as well. GuestStream 114, Chris Fields, Adam Safron, Maxwell Ramstead, and Carl Friston was on the inner screens paper. So the inner screen paper related to nested blankets, to quantum active inference and reference frames, and to awareness and consciousness. So, as one could imagine, it brought out a lot of fun, thought-provoking ideas. I remember this late July, early August period where there was kind of a turn to energy. And Alexei Gladstone presented on energy-based transformers are scalable learners and thinkers. And this was kind of like bringing together energy-based models and transformers, and was a very sparse, concise, clear, relevant presentation that is definitely important for those who are looking at energy-based models and about where transformers can go from here. Then taking a little bit more of a physical material perspective, Max Schaefer presented on solving the compute crisis with physics-based ASICs. Those are application-specific integrated computers. And Max was first author on this review and perspective piece. So basically, he took us through the paper that he wrote with colleagues. And for those interested in unconventional and conventional computing, it was a great paper, and obviously with critical economic and pragmatic relevance. Going into GuestStream 117, Robert Stamps presented on active inference and artificial spin ice, controlled processes and state selection. Here's Vladimir, and Robert was presenting on the nanomagnet, so material substrate, and how predictive coding was being implemented on this material nanomagnetic substrate. 118 was Tadahiro's second talk. GuestStream 119 with Nick Chater and Robert McKay. This was another economics presentation, and this one was a little bit more coming from the macroeconomic side, still very market-oriented, and some exciting developments in terms of understanding markets from first principles. GuestStream 120 was with Ifedayo Emmanuel, and he presented on several projects related to temporality of cognitive systems and physics of eye movement, brought in some consciousness topics, and so it was a fun and interesting talk. Getting to the last few here, GuestStream 121, Mike Wiest, Conscious Active Inference. This brought together some with a very provocative cover slide, might I add, on quantum active inference, less from the information processing and more from the material substrate of quantum OR, that type of area, connected to the cognitive and also the consciousness aspects. Warden. GuestStream 122 was with Andrea Hewitt, and she presented on wayfinding, radical relations, scaling without hierarchies, models without the meat. Great neuroscience-informed philosophy, and always a good experience to listen and learn from how she's thinking through these things. Warden again. On 11.5 was Marcelo Guzman, who presented on learning in physical networks. So this one, I would say, was a great cousin of Robert Stamps in terms of the nanomagnetics. And here's another example of using physical, unconventional computing substrates and big discussion topics around, well, okay, what are the areas that they can hot swap in? What are kinds of cognitive or computational functions that these unconventional substrates can immediately be used for? And how do we program? How do we work with them? How do we model them? GuestStream 124, Ty Rochford, who presented on PCT and FEP and discussed some of his work in comparing and holding up active inference alongside the perceptual control theory kinds of models and connecting them with category theory. And even just yesterday, Martin, Nika, and Osman presenting on from Charles Darwin's root brain to Nikola Tesla's 6G world brain and XAI native 6G networks. Similar to Christo Thomas's presentation in the focus on telecommunication networks, with a few different flavors brought in, that was very interesting and a great power outage disruption. So, if anyone has a comment, write it. Otherwise, that will basically end it. Just wanted to touch upon each of them, show one last kind of distilled artifact of what happened in this year, and look towards next year. So, if you have an idea, get in contact, leave a comment, and hope these were epistemic and or pragmatic for you. Thanks for watching, for participating along, and see you next time.